Hey guys, today I wanted to make a video about a very important skill that I think we should all try to develop, and that's the ability to hold two seemingly opposing ideas in our mind at the same time. And the reason why this is important is because when you have these opposing ideas in your head, we have this inner critic, and what that critic tends to do is if it sees an idea that opposes another belief or idea that we have in our mind, it will take whichever one is more strong, either from a factual perspective if you're more facts driven, or more of a emotional pull if you're more driven by emotions, and it'll cancel the other one out. And the problem here with this is that you're not really getting a authentic sense of the landscape. You're not getting the full view of things when you do that, because there might be a way that you feel about something, and there might be desires that you have and that you want that maybe clash with each other, or at least seem to clash with each other at some level. And because of that, you might begin to ignore parts of yourself that are there. So for instance, let's say that you have two opportunities for, let's say, a career path, and one might be more financially secure, the other one might be more fulfilling. And so let's say the side that's more emotionally fulfilling gives you kind of more of the tug here, and you choose to go with that side of things. Well, if you cancel the other side out, you now kind of maybe have the perspective that I'm someone that likes to have a career that's fulfilling, and I'm not worried about financial security, when that actually might be something that you really want. It's just not as strong of a driver for you. And so that being said, a more authentic approach would be, yes, I want a job that is financially secure, but I also want a job that's emotionally fulfilling. And that's more of an authentic, comprehensive view of those two thoughts and ideas, rather than saying, yes, you would like a job that's financially secure, but I like a job that's fulfilling, so I don't want a job that's financially secure. It's not really an authentic viewpoint. It's not that you don't want a job that's financially secure. It's that you want a job that's fulfilling, but you think that you have to forego one. You have to forego one of those ideas in order to take on another. And you see this a lot in groupthink, when you see a large subsection of people, maybe someone that has a very broad-reaching political opinion or viewpoint that's very polarized. If you look at that group of people, there's usually almost like a one sentence or kind of single phrase that kind of becomes like the phrase that really exemplifies that group, or that you can hear a crowd of those people shouting, maybe if it's in protest, or at a rally for whatever that viewpoint might be. And a lot of these viewpoints are going to not be very full, right? They're not really complete thoughts. They're more like generalized statements. And you'll find that if you were to talk with someone as an individual, the viewpoint might be a little bit more deep and complex. And as collectives, we don't deal well with very comprehensive thoughts, because they become difficult for us to really have passion with, right? So for instance, if I disagree with somebody on a certain part of their ideas or beliefs, right? But I agree with another portion. So let's say it's maybe a 60-40 split, where I disagree with 60% of what they say, but another 40% of what they say I agree with. I might decide to kind of take that 60% and we'll say that's a little bit stronger. And so ultimately I disagree with this person. And so if I take that and I say, well, I completely disagree with you, it's not a very true statement, because there's a lot of things I still agree with that person on. And so a true representation would be, oh, I, really agree with you on this. We differ in opinion here, but, we still have these, core things that maybe we agree on. And that's a more honest perspective of what I truly believe about, that person or their viewpoints, right? And what we tend to do is kind of cancel that out with whichever one is stronger, because it's easier for us to really look at things in a black and white scale of the world. Is it this or that? Is it a yes or a no? Is it a do or do not? And having that perspective also makes it easier for us to take action in those directions, because we don't have to really consider a lot of the, consequences for what we do. And keeping that in mind, it can often be good for us to clear up a lot of the, let's say, mental dialogue that comes with having these emotional conflicts by going with whatever, decision that we ultimately want. So let's say, giving the example of, let's say you want to go to a meeting and you want the meeting to go really well, but you're also nervous about the meeting, and so you kind of feel like you wish you weren't going to the meeting at all. Instead of having the head talk of, well, I really don't want to go to this meeting, or I'm really nervous about this meeting, I think it's going to go really poorly, we could instead, try to kind of talk ourselves up about the meeting. Oh, the meeting's going to go really well. Everything's going to go perfectly fine. I'm perfectly prepared for the meeting. The negotiations are going to go over smoothly. You could kind of have this more positive head talk, and it would really get you in less of a conflicted space. And what might happen when you're in that conflicted space over, wanting to have a good meeting, and also not wanting to go because of maybe how nervous you are about how things might go, or how much, negative head talk you might have, thinking like things are not going to go well, and I'm underprepared, and kind of these, negative bullet points. Doing something like that might actually cause you to take kind of unconscious action away from trying to have a good meeting. So you might end up getting so caught up in that thought process that you might actually kind of self-sabotage and underprepare for the meeting, because you already think that it's going to go terribly. You might end up showing up late to the meeting because you're so nervous about going to the meeting that you're not really excited and ready to get ready for the meeting and get prepared before you leave. And so maybe you are trying to do a lot of things last minute, and you kind of get caught up in the idea that it's going to go so poorly that you almost feel this resistance to even going to the meeting. You kind of have to work yourself up to even get there. So you might end up showing up late to the meeting, and again kind of having that self-fulfilling prophecy. And this is something that we all struggle with. This is really where that inner critic is coming in. And when we're trying to have that, positive self-talk of, oh, I think everything's going to go well, when you have that inner critic, it makes it really difficult to have that, positive conversation. And this is why it's important to be able to really have a more comprehensive viewpoint where you're really considering, all things, and allowing yourself to have both of these ideas in your head at the same time, because it silences the critic. It acknowledges both sides. It doesn't say, yes, I want this, but this is more important, so I'm going to cancel out the other thing. Instead, it says, yes, I want this, and I also want this. Yes, I think this is a valid viewpoint, and I also think that this is a valid viewpoint. And by doing that, you allow yourself to make more executive, conscious decisions about things, and not be so run by kind of the polarities of which one maybe feels stronger, or has a stronger pull for, whatever you use as your, sense of authority. If you're, appealing to logic, or if you're appealing to emotion or authority or anything like that, it's something that allows you to be more objective and truthful and honest about what you really feel and what you really want. And not be so closed off to things that are really true to you. You know, if you agree with someone's viewpoint on one point, but agree with them on another point that they make, being honest about that and saying, hey, you know, I really appreciate what you said here. I don't quite agree with necessarily this part of what you said, but I do acknowledge this. And that allows you to also be more resourceful, because what you're finding are things that you can then come to common ground on. Or, outside of that, you're maybe finding things that you can use and things that are beneficial to you. So if someone gives you some advice, for example, and maybe part of their advice doesn't really sit well with you, and maybe goes against a part of, who you are, or, you just hear the advice and it just doesn't sound like a good idea to you at the end of the day. You might not take that piece of the advice, but you could apply maybe something else that person said that really made sense to you, instead of kind of blocking out that person's advice altogether because you disagreed with 1 point or 2 points, or even the majority of what they said. You can still pull out that one piece that you agreed with and that made sense to you. And by doing that, you find more resources, more things that you can use. And this is why keeping positively focused is important, because by focusing on the things that you agree with that sound right to you, you give yourself more ammo, versus focusing on the things that you disagree with, the things that you're not going to use. Those are the things that aren't going to be useful for you, right? By finding all the parts of someone's advice that you are not going to follow through on, it doesn't help you because you're not going to follow through on that advice. But by finding the 1 or 2 things that they said that make sense to you, you can then use that information, even if the other 90% of it was useless to you. And so this is how you begin to hold 2 different viewpoints in your head at the same time. This is how you can hold 2 seemingly opposing ideas in your mind at the same time, is just acknowledging them for both being there, right? Just acknowledging the information and looking at it as data, looking at it as points that you can take into consideration as you're making a decision on what to do, but not judging the ideas themselves. Just letting the ideas be there as pieces of information and being more objective in, what you choose to do, how you choose to use that information. And so I just wanted to leave you with that, and I hope you have a great day.